to the moon in this decade and do the other thing, not because they are easy, but because they are hard. Because that goal will serve to organize and measure the best of our energies and skills. Because that challenge is one that we're willing to accept, one we are unwilling to postpone.
That's here. That's home. That's us. On it, everyone you love, everyone you know, everyone you ever heard of, every human being who ever was, lived out their lives by this point of pale light.
We shall prevail.
Houston, Tranquility Base here. The Eagle has landed.
Roger, Tranquility. We copy you on the ground.
That's one small step for man, one giant leap for mankind.
Welcome to the Internet Space Program.
Good morning, everybody. How's it going? I guess I was on mute there for a second. Thank you all for joining us today on this Thursday, tuning in for another MoonDAO Town Hall. If you're tuning in here on YouTube, on X, or on LinkedIn, be sure to give us a like, a share, help spread the word. We've got a busy town hall today. It should be a good one. We have a conversation between Frank White, author of The Overview Effect, and Dr. Gretchen Green, a commercial astronaut with Blue Origin's NS-32 mission. So super excited. They've got a interesting conversation planned. I believe Gretchen is going to be interviewing Frank. So we're going to be turning the tables a little bit on what we've done on some of the previous town halls. And they're going to be talking about how to elevate your perspective and the transformative power of pursuing your highest goal. So really relevant to what we're doing with Frank White and this mission to space. Before I turn it over to them, I do want to go over a few administrative or housekeeping tasks around what MoonDAO is working on right now. Obviously, we have the campaign to send Frank White to space. We are coming in on the last few days here. I think we're at 4 days now before the deadline. We've had 115 contributions from people all over the world, which is really amazing. But we still need a lot of effort here, a big push these last few days to really get us over the line, and elevate the possibilities of what we can do with these funds and what sort of mission profiles are available to us. So if you're sitting on the sideline, haven't donated yet, please do go to moondao.com/Frank, contribute here today during this town hall, contribute over the weekend. Join the mission. You're not just donating into the abyss, you're actually joining a mission. You're making this mission a reality, and you can help govern the outcomes of this mission, participate in a meaningful way in some of the mission decisions, and stay involved. It's a different way to participate, fund, and govern space missions. So we're really excited about it. We really want you to join us. We have the potential for a second seat to accompany Frank if we can get the funding available to do so. And we have, I think, 30 people now who are 30 citizens who have thrown their hat in the ring to compete for that seat. So if you haven't donated yet, you can, or if you're not a citizen yet and you haven't donated, if you donate over $100 USD, you help the mission, and you can also become a citizen at no extra cost to compete for that second seat. So if you have any questions at any point in time, you can reach out to myself, you can reach out to Pablo. Our DMs, our direct messages are open, or you can just email us directly to Ryan@moondao.com. Happy to answer any questions. But that's all I'll say about the Frank White mission for right now. One more quick update before we get to the conversation. We do have a couple very important governance decisions that are up right now for the MoonDAO community. First and foremost, we have the Q2 project voting live. Last week, we had the project leads or the proposals present. We had 12 proposals, and 10 of those passed the Senate review. So those are now up for vote to the MoonDAO community. We're trying to determine which projects will be going forward and be funded by the MoonDAO community. We have about $23,000 in funding available for this quarter's projects. And yeah, it's pretty much up to the voters in terms of, what we should be funding in Q2, what you want to see move forward. So yeah, we have the votes on the Q2 projects, and we also have the votes on the Q1 retroactive rewards. So we have some funding available for retroactive rewards. This is based on proof of work and impact. The community can vote to decide how to distribute that reward pool. And that vote is also live. Both are here live right now. Yeah, the 10 proposals have passed the Senate, and now it's up to you all to determine what moves forward. You can go to moondao.com/projects. These are the 10 projects that have moved forward. We've got things ranging from lunar-based designs to amateur rocketry to space content, documentaries. We've got in-person events, IRL events, virtual events, a lot of cool stuff going on. Research about space pheromones and the overview effect, relevant to Frank White's work, of course. So yeah, a lot of cool initiatives. It depends on which projects the community votes to move forward. We'll have a cutoff. We'll either fund the top 50% of projects or up until the funding deadline. So get your votes in. Yeah. The completed missions, we have the Accelerate MoonDAO Growth project, which completed during Q1, and the executive branch work through Q4 to Q1. So those are the ones that submitted final reports and gave final presentations last week. And we have about 2 ETH that we're going to be distributing between those projects based on their impact. So again, you can use weighted voting to determine how to distribute those rewards, whether that's 30% for project A, 70% for project B, or 15, 85, whatever distribution makes sense to you based on your evaluations of the projects. And yeah, this is kind of the cycle. Projects get funded by the MoonDAO community. The MoonDAO community evaluates those projects, sends out retroactive rewards. That gives the project leaders more voting power in the MoonDAO community, and also the financial rewards based on ETH. So yeah, this is your final kind of deployment orders here. Go to moondao.com/projects. Be sure to cast your vote for the 2 things, which is the Q2 projects and the Q1 retroactive reward projects. So for the Q1, well, for both of them, you're going to want to distribute 100% of your voting power across the projects to help determine what goes forward in terms of the Q2 projects. And same in terms of distributing the rewards pool for Q2. So yeah, you can go now to moondao.com/projects and get that vote in. Voting will be open for 5 days, and then we'll close that up and we'll have the results to see who's moving forward in terms of our Q2 cohorts. So yeah, that's all I kind of wanted to get to in terms of the housekeeping for MoonDAO stuff. If you have any questions, as we said, you can reach out to us or just shout out in the Discord, and we'll be glad to help you. But last week's town hall, you can catch all the recordings of the proposals. They're also linked on this project page. You can read the full proposals, how much they're asking for in their budget, what they hope to accomplish, and hear directly from those folks in terms of what they're proposing. From the town hall from last week. But yeah, we can keep things moving right along because we do have an interesting conversation here with Dr. Gretchen Green and Frank White. So let me invite them both up to the stage right now. Hey, Frank. Hey, Gretchen.
Hi, everybody.
Hey there.
Good to see you guys. Well, yeah, I could just turn it over to you guys right now.
Okay.
All right.
Well,
okay.
We're going to do something a little different today. We tried it out in a small way previously, but as everybody knows, I'm sorry, Moondog is here. Moondog, can you go away for a minute? Yeah, okay. So I generally interview astronauts, and what we have been finding that's interesting is for astronauts to interview me. And Gretchen has prepared a series of very interesting questions to ask. And so I am going to turn it over to you, Gretchen, and I'm here to answer as best I can.
Great. Hi, everybody. I'm Gretchen Green. It's an honor and a privilege to be here. I so enjoyed having the opportunity to be interviewed by Frank as part of his newest upcoming book edition. And I learned, I think, even more than he did about me from that experience. So I am so excited to have this opportunity to ask Frank some questions that really focus on the journey. Because as for him and as for most of us, most of our lives are spent preparing for that journey to space. And it's almost as important as that moment where it becomes reality. So thank you all for your support to send Frank to space. There is no one more worthy of the experience, and I know who will bring that back to the rest of us on Earth than Frank. As a reminder, we only have until Monday, April 27, to make those contributions and make the difference. And I also wanted to thank MoonDAO for the support for Space Camp. So this isn't just about one person going, even though it's about bringing all of us along for that journey. Remember also that some of the proceeds go to support Space Camp, of which I am a alumna, and my kids and many generations to come from us. So it's important, and I appreciate that too. So we'll jump in here. Frank, you've spent decades studying and interviewing astronauts, helping the world to understand the overview effect. But this moment is different because now the possibility is personal. What changed in your thinking that allowed you to move from interviewing astronauts and observing those thoughts to believing that you could have that chance yourself?
I'd say there are two things that happened, Gretchen, and I want to thank MoonDAO for their role in this. I'm going to speak to that in a minute. But basically, I think I always wanted to be an astronaut. And the challenge was I was not willing to study and learn disciplines that were not my strength. I did not want to be an engineer. I did not want to be a physicist. Honestly, I did not want to be a doctor, which qualifies you for NASA. And actually, I wanted to study social sciences. More recently, I've turned to philosophy. But the point is that there were no avenues open to me for a long, long time to fly. It was really, as long as I stuck to my interest, it was just closed to me. I looked at the NASA application several times, and it always made pretty clear who should even apply. And it was not people interested in history and government and sociology and philosophy. It was people interested in natural sciences, engineering, and so on. So that was just the way it was. What changed is two things. One, I was on a podcast with Christina Rasmussen, and by the time I was interviewed by her, I just accepted I'm not going to be an astronaut. I interview them. I interview astronauts. That's my contribution. Christina boldly asked me at the end, "Don't you want to go?" And it was a hard moment to process because I realized, well, yeah. And also, we're getting closer to commercial spaceflight, which you know a great deal about. 2021, everything changed. It became a matter of finances, not a matter of skill set. And then the other thing that happened was I talked to Ryan and Pablo at MoonDAO and told them, "You've flown two people. If you want to fly a third, think about me." And they said, "Well, we've been thinking about you." And that's when it all started. So it was a series of events that tapped into something I really, really wanted to do. And MoonDAO, I'm just going to close by saying MoonDAO really is a space program. It's just as viable as other space programs. They've flown two people. They've funded 80 projects that are space related. And I think I found the space program that I wanted to be part of. And that's why I think it's possible now.
That's amazing. And what we're seeing is increasing diversity in who goes to space. Even though I seem to fit that mold, we're seeing more and more that people with complementary abilities, social sciences, communication, education, that they are now increasingly a part of the conversation and part of exploring space.
Right.
But I think all of us have that moment that it doesn't feel real until it becomes real. And for me, even though I seem to fit that mold, I felt like I was always volunteering before I truly felt that it was the right time, but I was ready for it to become that. So I call this raising your hand before you're ready. And it sounds like that this has been something for you too. What about that podcast or about that question helped you to say, okay, I might be ready for this next step, even if I don't feel it right now?
Well, first of all, it was the podcaster. Christina and I had become friends. She's got a lot of insight into human nature. She always felt like I could do it, and that essentially it would happen, and that she encouraged me from that moment on, and she's still part of my team of support for going. And, actually, I think that I'm becoming my true self. I think this is who I wanted to be. It's been a big step for me to put myself out there and be very open to say, I want to do this, rather than my posture before was people would say, and I think you said it, no one deserves to go more than you. And then I would think, yes, well, that's nice to hear, but how does it happen? And I was taking a rather passive approach, which was, okay, if it's true that I deserve it, what is holding me back? And working with MoonDAO on this raise, I've crossed a lot of red lines or barriers psychologically just to put myself out there on the internet and on YouTube. And actually every day I turn on the computer, I see myself because of Ryan, who has been doing a magnificent job of social media. And it's interesting because I thought I would be much more concerned about that than I am. I found that actually I've accepted it pretty easily. And I guess it's because it is something I want and I'm willing to pay a price to obtain it. And I think you and I have talked about this, both commercial astronauts and professional astronauts. That's pretty much what it comes down to. You do generally have to pay a price to achieve something beyond your capabilities. And I come back to your last point. I didn't feel ready to raise my hand. I just felt like, you don't have forever to do this. You're going to have to raise your hand if you want to do it.
And it sounds like Christina's role in that was someone who believed in you. And I've been fortunate also to have people who all believed this was possible, even though it didn't seem possible. I was too short and my vision was too bad. And yet those things changed as part of actually getting older. There were things that happened with me with running, and I grew 1.5 inches in my 40s. Things that we think are impossible sometimes happen, and that's remarkable. But when you have people who believe in you, I think that makes all the difference. And so everyone here who is supporting this is part of making what's seemingly impossible possible. And one of those barriers that I think we put in place is thinking that there is an age limit. So how do you respond to that if pursuing something extraordinary doesn't have an age limit?
It's very interesting. I'm a white male. I'm essentially what we would call privileged. I don't think I've faced a lot of discrimination in my life, but I do see age discrimination very clearly now. I noticed when I turned 80, people started talking to me differently. They started relating to me differently. Some of it was kind. They worried about me more. You know, like, are you sure you can do X, Y, and Z? Do you need me to help you with that? And so on. But what I've realized is that we attribute certain characteristics to age that have really nothing to do with age, actually. So I'm 82 years old. There are people who are 82 years old who are very debilitated, cognitively or physically. I've been pretty fortunate. I'm not saying I haven't had my problems medically and so on. However, I think it has more to do with my diet, my fitness, my do I meditate, which I do actually. I think there's a stereotype of old people that is really not accurate, and it's really kind of general, that when you get older, certain things happen and you can't do what you did before. My attitude toward it has been to say, I oppose ageism, and sometimes I will call people on it. I don't like to do that. I don't like to be confrontational, but I do think it's a problem society needs to work on, because the other problem is if you keep having that feedback, it's the opposite of what you just talked about. Instead of being supportive, you find you're inculcating these attitudes about age. And I find it in myself, where I have to be very, very careful not to think, well, that happened because I'm in my 80s. It's complicated. I don't know if I fully understand it, but it's interesting how many people have asked me, are you going to be the oldest commercial astronaut? And it's like, no, William Shatner, Ed Dwight, a lot of people older than I am have flown.
It's amazing when we look at others for proof that we can do it too. But here you were over all these years making these daily decisions to become someone who becomes an astronaut, with the diet and the exercise and the meditation. That's all preparation as part of this journey. Yeah. So people ask me, how did I stick to this goal for 40 years? Well, I just kept going every day, doing things like that I thought would get me closer to my goal of going to space. Mm-hmm. And I think flipping this around, we also have some reverse ageism on young people, where we think that young people do crazy things, or they don't think, in my case, or that they don't understand consequences or think to the future. In my case, when I was 16, I did that a little bit unknowingly. I signed up without realizing. I thought I had mailed away for information because we didn't have the internet in those days. But instead, I had signed up to bicycle across America to end world hunger with a bunch of other teenagers from all over the world. My rider packet came back, and I had to sort of inform my parents that I had been apparently assigned rider number 19. And in order to do this bike ride across America, could they please go buy me a bike? And it didn't hit me as absurd or ridiculous at all that I had apparently signed up for this trip and did not own a bicycle. Right. And that we think, oh, that's what kids do. But my mindset was more in doing something that was much bigger than myself, something that could accomplish something amazing in the world for a lot of people above me. So what were experiences for you early in life, or how do you feel that those kinds of early commitments can shape where we're led later?
I'm really glad you brought that up because I really feel that for me to go on a space flight reinforces the work I'm doing on a larger scale, which is researching, writing about, and sharing the overview effect. The overview effect is a term I came up with after an experience on an airplane, as you know, but it was to describe future people living off world and always seeing the Earth as a whole system, no borders, no boundaries. We're all in this together. I had a lot of ideas after I had an epiphany about it of what a future space person, how they would think. And then it became obvious this happened in 1984. Well, that's science fiction. There are no such people. You want to write a science fiction novel? No, I don't. So I thought, well, astronauts are the closest people I have. That's what started interviewing astronauts. And there's an idea out there that I started interviewing astronauts and then I came up with the term, but that's backward. I started with the term, it's a hypothesis. It's yet to be confirmed about future people. But in any event, I found out that astronauts, including commercial astronauts like you, did have some of those perceptions that I was thinking about. So over time, what's become most important is to bring the overview effect down to Earth. It's holistic thinking. It sees the Earth as a system. It's a realization the borders and boundaries that we fight wars over and care so much about are in our minds. We don't have to get rid of them. We have to understand that we created them for good reason. I mean, I said this before. I think it's great that Massachusetts and California are not exactly the same. All the 50 states of the United States are different. That's terrific. All the countries on the earth are different. That's terrific. But we don't want that difference to become dominant. We need to see it in an attitude of unity. That's what my understanding, Gretchen, because I haven't been, that's what people see when they look at the earth from a distance. They see the unity without forgetting about the diversity and the differences. So I believe it's very important for the future of humanity to get that other piece, which is, yeah, okay, you're from England. Well, you know, you speak English differently from me, or you're from Germany, you speak a language I don't even understand. But we're all human and we're all on a spaceship together. And we shouldn't let those differences divide us. That's a real purpose. And if I get to fly, I think my sharing of the overview effect will have a little bit more impact. But it's been pretty effective to share what you've told me and what other astronauts have told me. So it's really, how shall I put it? For me to fly is part of a larger quest.
I agree. And I did definitely feel that in space that we are on one journey all together, even on a single spaceship, planet Earth. Yeah. And that's such an important and valuable observation that anyone anywhere can take.
Right.
And I'm curious, how has, since you've been doing this for so long and there has been geopolitical change, borders have changed over the course of your research. You've had 2 subsequent books after the overview effect. How have you seen shifts in astronaut interviews, observations, and people's reports over the length of your research?
Great question. It's interesting to point out that for 25 years, from 1961 to 1987, there was no term to describe this experience. People were having the experience, but there were no words. A colleague of mine, Stan Rosen, actually was doing research with astronauts before I did. He was seeing some of the same things I did, but I think the difference was that that term, the overview effect, which came to me before I did the research, seems to be a universal term that people can share and use. And that led to a new era, which was the era of the professional astronauts. And now they had a term. And I began to interview them and shared the term. And it's kind of funny, Gretchen. I can see articles on the internet where people say, the astronauts have a term for it. They call it the overview effect. And I think, yeah, well, that's kind of true. They do. And then the change that's really what you're a part of. The book came out. The book is going into its 5th edition. As you said, I wrote 2 more books about it. Now, commercial astronauts are going with the intent of having the experience. NASA astronauts, Roscosmos cosmonauts, Chinese taikonauts, generally, they did not go for that experience. They went to do work. It was their job to go. The discovery was, the Earthrise photo was a total accident. They were just surprised to even see it. They were looking at the moon. So that's one big change. And actually, you've been doing research which confirms something else I've seen, that people are very Earth-centered, and it goes back to a comment that Joe Allen made to me, one of the first people I interviewed. He said, for all the reasons pro and con for going to the moon, nobody ever said we should do it to look back at the Earth, but that may be the most important reason. And as we've gotten deeper into the commercial astronaut world, as you've looked at it, people are more and more taken with what it means for the Earth and bringing the experience back and doing something for the planet, rather than thinking of, oh, I want to live on Mars, or I want to live in an O'Neill community or something like that. So that's a good thing, that we're not talking about abandoning Mother Earth, but taking better care of her.
Absolutely. And you're right. You're referencing the research that I've done into the Blue Origin astronaut biographies, which are written prior to flight. And in the cases of 6 astronauts who flew twice, a second biography that was written prior to their second flight. And these show a really interesting shift in the identities and the self-descriptors of Blue Origin astronauts over the course of several years of missions, with the mission to space coming back to Earth with a focus on communication, education, environmentalism. So it's clearly having a very rapid evolutionary effect on how we perceive spaceflight and who goes, and that all in a great direction that I think will expand that awareness to a lot of people. And given that we're now at just over 700 people who have traveled above the Kármán line, I was woman number 102. How do you think that so many more of the billions of people on Earth can access the overview effect, even here from Earth?
Well, one thing I would say is that the full experience is to be weightless, even briefly, to be at a distance, and to see the Earth not only from space, but in space. It's really clear as I talk to people that the blackness of outer space is as important as the blueness of Earth. And you see in both the Earthrise photo and the Earthset photo that Artemis did, there are 3 elements: the crater-marked moon, the the full of life Earth, I'm not quite sure how to phrase it, and then the blackness of the cosmos. And so it's not just the Earth, it's the Earth in context. And people realize there's nowhere else to go. I mean, this is it. We better take care of it. So, yeah, I think that's part of it. And so there's the full experience, which you've had. And then there are analogs to it, or there are approximations, I suppose. I've done some virtual reality experiences. It takes you pretty far down the path of having that cognitive shift. Also, following Artemis, I think it'd be great to do some research on what happened to the minds of those who kind of went on the trip with them. I think people were affected. And I think they were more affected by Apollo than they were by Apollo, because we have so much wall-to-wall media right now. And NASA really just kept covering Artemis. So I don't think, in order to have a fundamental shift on Earth in our worldview and in our behavior, not everybody's got to go into orbit or even on a suborbital hop. There's a lot of work being done in VR, and it's pretty effective. I've told this story before. I was at a conference with Chris Dombrowski, who flew on Inspiration 4, and he gave me a set of goggles, and he had a video of astronauts working on the ISS. And I was really impressed, and I kept saying, Chris, this is what you've been telling me about. This is it. I see it, because it is three-dimensional. You're in it. Your mind doesn't know that you're not out there, really. After a while, you're out there too. And I think there are going to be more and more immersive experiences that are going to be designed to communicate the overview effect, because I think there's a demand for it. People want that experience. So, I think people are going to want the overview effect, and they're going to say, I can't buy a ticket on Virgin. What else can I do? And there will be an answer, because demand creates supply, So I think there will be a demand.
I love the use of the word immersive, because I think it goes beyond where your body is in time or space, or where your mind is. For me, growing up, looking at so many photos that for the most part had come from the space shuttle program, I just used to gaze at those photos and feel this awe and wonder and excitement, and just what would it be like to see that for myself. And one of the, most surprising experiences for me was when we got to space and unstrapped and were floating and looked out the window. The first thought that I had was, it looks just like the pictures. And at a moment, I kind of brought myself up short and thought, well, that's a stupid thought, right? It should look much more amazing than the photos, because why am I here? And I realized also, no, that was confirmatory. It was confirming that all the time that I had gazed at those photos and had conjured those feelings up and been in the moment, that was all just part of that preparation. There was nothing diminished about that. It was just familiar and what I was hoping for that whole time. But I remember being at space camp, and the first IMAX movie that I saw was The Dream is Alive. For anyone who has seen this, and they open the shuttle payload doors and you look out and gaze at Earth and just kind of have a little gasp of breath. That's what it's like. And you can approximate that. But more importantly is how you are in that experience. And people will say, oh, what's 3 minutes in space? Or what's 3 days of in-person training? And it's just where you put yourselves in those moments for how present you are and how much you are experiencing to its fullest. So, we've been talking about some of these things, in a very personal way. But the great thing about experiences like Space Camp, where we now have 1 million alumni worldwide who have shared in this, MoonDAO platform now, where we have thousands who are able to collectively be part of this. Why now is crowdfunding and a mission-driven selection model such a powerful way to democratize access to space? Why is that important?
Well, I go back to what I mentioned before about demand and supply. There is a greater demand than NASA can provide, and the fact that you have 1 million alumni of Space Camp, that shows how interested people are in this whole experience. And so people are really interested. There's also the entire analog astronaut community. They don't necessarily have ways of experiencing the overview effect, but they simulate a mission that lasts a couple of weeks. And I think it's really interesting. It can last longer, actually, but they're in a confined situation, and they don't go outside without putting on a spacesuit. And often they try to set the habitat in a place that resembles the moon or Mars. Why are people doing that? Well, I think they're doing it because they want the experience. Analog astronauts are very proud of, I am an analog astronaut, and they'll say it very proudly. I think they're preparing for something bigger than what we're even talking about, which is going from mission to migration. A lot of people have talked about it. Is it in our DNA? Is it going to be for economic reasons? Or why are we going to spread out and inhabit the entire solar ecosystem? The real driving forces are multiple, but if you look at reality, what you see is millions of people are getting ready to go live off the Earth. It is happening. And so you need MoonDAO, and you need more organizations like MoonDAO to think through and help make those things happen. Just go back to NASA. They'll say, oh, we have 10 slots open, and they have 10,000 people apply. That tells you something. And I've thought a lot about what happens to the 9,990 people, or whatever the number is, who really wanted to go, and yet they didn't get selected. They didn't lose interest, So whatever the reason, I do think it's in our DNA, to be honest. But whatever the reason, we have this exploratory drive and our desire to see what's on the other side of the hill and all of that. We're going to do it. It's a very human thing to do. And we need a lot more infrastructure like MoonDAO to help people do it. And it's going to take people like Ryan and Pablo who are willing to create this infrastructure that you see. I mean, you and I are doing this conversation only because somebody else raised their hand and said, I think I'm going to do what needs to be done. And they started doing it in 2021. It takes a lot of work. I hope people will be inspired by what they're doing to do something similar.
I do too. And I hope that more people can identify with the commercialization and start to see themselves in it. And as for people who have tried a lot of times, Dr. Iman Jahangir has talked exactly about this. I think he said he applied 12 times, in different ways to try to get his chance to go up. And he's such a wonderfully articulate person about that quality of perseverance. What are other qualities that you've seen in talking to astronauts, both commercial and NASA? What are some of these defining traits, like that human instinct to explore? What are others that other people can identify with and say, yes, I feel that too. Maybe this is my path.
I think perseverance is the number one quality. I've seen it in talking to NASA astronauts. Very few of them are selected the first time they apply. And Mike Foreman is a great example, who eventually had 2 flights, and he helped build the International Space Station. And I don't know if I have the right number, but he was turned down by NASA 7 or 8 times. And, he just kept applying. And one of the other astronauts said, I kept applying, and I think they finally decided the only way that they were going to get rid of me was to accept me, And, so I think that's the number one thing. I think NASA might do that on purpose, just to see. I've been imagining a group of NASA people who are on the selection committee, and one of them says, this guy is terrific. I know we don't accept the first application, but we ought to accept him. And then the other people say, no, we can't. It's part of the process to turn him down. Of course, he's well qualified. I'm making that up, but it does look like most NASA astronauts were turned down initially. And it was probably a blow to their ego, because I'm sure many of them were not used to getting turned down. So perseverance is important. I don't know if resilience is different. I think it is. I think resilience is bouncing back when things don't go well, and then you persevere. And I would say, we don't have to get into a lot of detail, but I started actually applying, I think, with Inspiration 4. I applied for one of those seats, and I was competing with friends. And I also noted that there weren't that many people competing for that particular seat. And honestly, Gretchen, one day I thought, I might win. That was a gulp moment. I might actually win. And I realized there were no professional astronauts going. It was all civilian. And as you know, I had a prenuptial agreement with Donna that if I got to go, she wouldn't stand in my way. But I thought, I think I should tell her what's actually going on with this. And I started to tell her, and she said, prenup, don't worry about it. But I applied for Dear Moon. I'm now doing this campaign. And I think this campaign is super important. It's a great opportunity. But in my mind, whatever happens, I'm going to keep going. It has become part of my life. I've gone from being an astronaut interviewer to an aspiring astronaut. And I have to say, Gretchen, you've had a big impact on me, because a lot of times when I hesitate, I hear you saying, you should just raise your hand, even if you're not ready.
Exactly. I'm so glad for that. And I also remember when I applied for Inspiration 4 also, I knew that the entrepreneur seat that Cyan won was the one to beat. I just thought there can't be that many people competing for this. The odds are probably the best that I've ever had in my life of getting to apply for something like this, just numerically. But yes, I donated also for what ended up being Chris's seat. And I wrote Jared Isaacman a letter and volunteered to do any of the other 3 seats, understanding that his seat was definitely taken. So it's been amazing for me getting to know the Inspiration 4 astronauts and having seen them in a number of space camp and other now like lots of space events. And for me, that I have a photo that's hanging now in my office from a Space Camp Hall of Fame dinner in 2022 when we honored them. And I was doing some introductions as leading the Space Camp Alumni Association. And the photographer took a photo of the four of them and me waiting in the wings for something in the program to go up on stage. And I just remember thinking at that moment, like feeling like I was just tingly, thinking like I'm standing next to 4 astronauts. This is amazing. And I can tell you now, even after going, it's not diminished. I still get tingly and excited every time I meet someone new and get to talk about the experience. So the effect of having had this opportunity does not go away, and it's something that is wonderful to share. What responsibility do you think astronauts have to share this experience with the world on returning?
Yeah. I think it's a pretty big responsibility, to be honest. Our world is not in good shape. And I've come in the wake of Artemis, I've come to make a distinction between surface thinking and overview thinking. Surface thinking is what most people do, and it's not their fault. It's all about experience. Our everyday experience of the world is like our ancestors 1,000 years ago. We're on a stable platform. The heavens revolve above us. We're not moving. Everything else is moving around us. It's a geocentric view of our situation. Also, I mean, I'm sitting here outside of Boston, Massachusetts. As far as I can tell, the Earth is huge, full of resources. You know, I don't get a feeling of fragility or limits or any of that. And so the behavior we see that's really detrimental to the planet and to our species is based on a false understanding of our situation. Seeing the Earth from a distance, whether it's commercial, whether it's the space station or going to the moon, you see a different picture of the Earth. You see unity, you see connection, you see oneness, but you also see it against this backdrop of the cosmos. You realize, yeah, you know, that spaceship Earth analogy is not so far off. And if we're the crew of Spaceship Earth, we're kind of drifting here. And we've got to change what we do. Astronauts have a lot of credibility. They've gone, and, you know, I always repeat this, Gretchen, and you and I talked about it. Every astronaut risks their life to go get sacred knowledge and bring it back. And if you don't bring it back, you've had a great experience, but you haven't really benefited the larger community. And Tracy Caldwell Dyson said it to me, you know, you don't go to space for yourself. So I think the responsibility is enormous. And I have to tell you, I actually know what it's like to be an astronaut because I've been mistaken for an astronaut twice at conferences. I was treated in a very special manner in those two situations. I know you're treated differently. I'm sure you've experienced it. And if you don't feel a responsibility for, you know, sharing what you learned out there, you're missing something, I think. And of course, I had to tell the truth and say, I want to go, but I haven't gone yet. And and then suddenly I'm being treated like, oh, you're a writer. Okay, fine. You're a nice guy anyway. You know, but it is a difference. I wonder how many people have had my experience of being treated like an astronaut without having flown. I learned a lot. And I think you asked me what started this desire to do it. Well, I wanted it to be more true and real and consistent. Yes, it is right that you treat me this way, because I did do what you think I did. Yeah, it's a nice feeling.
And I think we all give credibility when we feel that something is earned. But I also, because now we have such a big online community, I meet a lot of people who are aspiring astronauts. I think we should call everybody astronaut candidates.
Yeah.
Because anyone who decides that it is possible for them to do it is an astronaut candidate too, because the mindset shift is really what matters. Deciding that that's possible, that you have something to give and something that you can learn and take from the experience as well. Yeah. As we finish up here, what's one part of advice that you would leave people with to not give up on pursuing this kind of goal?
Yeah. As you know, it's not about going to space. It's about pursuing your highest purpose. And what I would say is don't stop. I mean, I thought many times that the ability to pursue my highest purpose was not going to work out. And I think if anyone is out there and they have some dream or sense of who they should be or what they should be doing, and they feel like they're stuck or they're not getting there, the only defeat is giving up. As long as you persist, and even if you have to take a detour, as long as you keep that dream in mind, you're still in the game. So I really want to urge everybody to do that. And don't feel like you have to ask permission from anybody to do what you want to do, because you don't.
And take the encouragement and the belief from others when you have those moments as well.
Yeah, for sure.
Thank you. This has been wonderful. As usual, I have learned so much from you. I'm so grateful for this opportunity to talk with you and to share this with the MoonDAO community. Remember, April 27th is the deadline, folks, but we could reach that before. So this is the time that we can all collectively make a difference. And thank you to Ryan for having us here today.
Thank you, Gretchen. Yeah.
Thank you, Ryan.
Thank you, Frank. Awesome conversation. Yeah, so much that we can, take away in our normal day-to-day lives for pursuing other things, not just, seats to space, of course. But yeah, I really, really appreciate that message. The perseverance thing, as you talked about with Iman, just how many times he applied, or I don't know, the movie, well, it's obviously the true story, but with Jose Hernandez and his story about how many times he applied to be a NASA astronaut, just so many stories. And it's a great message here for people who have the dream to go to space. You miss 100% of the shots you don't take. This is another potential opportunity that we're doing here with Frank. And if you're interested in going to space, throw your hat in the ring, raise your hand, and how's another chance. So just wanted to throw that out there again. But yeah. Cool. Well, thank you so much.
Come fly with me, I guess, is the message, Ryan.
Yeah.
Let's
true, right?
Let's go together. Yeah.
Totally. Awesome. Well, thank you again, Gretchen, for joining us today and interviewing Frank.
Oh, my pleasure. Thank you.
All right. Frank, I guess we have potentially another event that we might be doing later this weekend. Is that right?
Yeah, we're going to make a final push to raise the funds for this project. And we haven't set out all the parameters yet, but I think we're going to start Sunday night and go through most of the day Monday. We're going to be online. We're going to be talking about the campaign. We'll have other people like Gretchen stop by. We'll talk about MoonDAO. We'll talk about everything we talked about today, and it'll also be a fundraising effort, but I think people just enjoy being involved and getting connected to the project.
Awesome. Yeah. Good old fashioned telephone, space telephone. So yeah, Spaceathon, exactly. So stay tuned for that. We'll be sending out some more details here shortly once we get everything in order. And Jabab has a question that, can we get an update on the amount of off-chain donations that have been received, or is there a tracker up to date inclusive of those funds? Yeah, Bob. The majority of those are already reflected on the dashboard. So if you put your mouse right over the amount raised, you'll see a breakdown there. There are still a few more that we're getting in here in these final days that are not reflected there, but we will probably be adding those in as they come through and clear. But we are tracking both the on-chain and off-chain contributions there. So check that out, Bob. But yeah, reminder to get in your votes. If you haven't voted for the candidate you'd like to see accompany Frank in that +1 type seat, you can go to moondao.com/overview-vote. Get in your contributions today and over the weekend. Let's do this like final push, finish strong, to put us in the best position possible for a space mission, and the different profiles that are available. And also, one last reminder to get in your project votes over the weekend, review the Q2 projects and what finished over Q1, and submit your votes this weekend as well. But yeah, I guess we'll be seeing you all again here Sunday, hopefully. Sunday, Monday. Cool. All right. Thanks, Frank. Thank you again, Gretchen. All right. See you, everyone.
Thanks, Ryan.
Bye-bye.
Station, this is Frank White. How do you hear me?
We have you loud and clear, sir. Great to be talking with you today.
When I interviewed the astronauts and heard what they had to say, I was convinced that if the world heard their stories, it would create a revolution in thought on planet Earth.
After seeing the planet from the vantage point of space, you realize the undeniable reality of our shared existence, our unity.
For 25 years, astronauts were experiencing a phenomenon, but for a long time they had no way to say it. I thought the world needed language for it.
Frank's work gave me a voice to express what I was already feeling and trying to share with people.
The overview effect is about love and identity. It tells us the truth about who we are and where we are in the universe.
Frank is a pioneer in that. Just coining the world overview effect will help people see our world differently.
He is a space philosopher that can change the future. And that's why we should send Frank to space.
It's time for us to fly Frank to space so he can experience the overview effect himself.
I keep wanting to tell people it's not about me. The astronauts are the heroes of the story.
This world needs people like Frank White being able to see our planet from space.
Imagine what he will come back with and the gift that he will give to humanity.
It's our duty to put him in that place and live out the joy of what that can bring to his life.
I have always dreamed of having this experience. I felt like I'm never going to get to do it. And I'm quite grateful. I'm extremely grateful that so many people are supporting this mission. Thank you from the bottom of my heart. It means everything to me.